Hi, I'm Jerop Kipruto, and I'm a software engineer at Google working on Gemini CLI. Recently, we launched Gemini CLI, an open source AI agent that brings the power of Gemini directly into your terminal. The response has been incredible, with plenty of community contributions. To keep up, we put Gemini CLI to the test. And we use it directly on GitHub to automate issue triage and pull request reviews. This allowed us to manage the influx of contributions into the project. You noticed our new workflows and asked us to share what we had built. So, today we're launching Gemini CLI Github Action, now in beta. You can use it in two ways. One, to automate routine yet critical tasks in your repositories. And two, as an on-demand collaborator that you can delegate tasks to on issues and pull requests. Let me show you an end-to-end software development lifecycle using Gemini CLI Github Action. In Gemini CLI, we use ASCII art for our logo. And we've seen many coding agents are also using ASCII art. So we built the logo maker where you just have to input your logo name or your product name and we get the logo. Now, this is really limiting. I want to be able to try out different fonts before deciding which one to move forward with for my application. For this reason, I'm going to go to the Logo Maker repository and file a feature request. This feature request is for font selection, and I'm going to ask that it should have a drop-down menu where I can look at a set of fonts and try out different options before deciding which one matches with my team's design choices. Now, when I file this issue, behind the scenes, Gemini CLI looks at the issue description and categorizes the task, applying the appropriate labels. This helps the team know what issues to prioritize based on priority, area, and the kind of issue. And now, because this is a well-defined task, I'm going to delegate the task to Gemini CLI by mentioning Gemini CLI and providing a prompt just instructing it to implement this feature. When I do this, Gemini CLI starts a GitHub action behind the scenes where it's going to start checking out the code, looking at the issue request, and then it shows me a plan for what it's going to do. And on the list here, I can see that it's going to make some backend changes to app.py, some frontend changes to the index.html, and then it's going to commit the changes to my repository, and I can actually check it out and review the code. Now that Gemini has completed executing the task, it's going to provide me with a summary for what it did behind the scenes so that I'm up to date with all the progress. And as we can see here, it updates me that it's implemented the font selection feature. And now we can choose from a drop-down menu to generate new ASCII art. And now it comes back with a link to the pull request that contains that feature. To recap, I filed an issue and then I delegated the task to Gemini CLI. It gave me a plan for how it's going to execute the task. It summarized what it did and provided a link to the pull request where I can review the changes. Now I can check out the commit for adding font selection, and I can review the files that were changed. Here, we can see that Gemini CLI got rid of all those hard-coded fonts, and now it's relying on a library to provide the fonts. It's made some changes to the code as well, so that it can rely on the library, and it's added the front-end changes so that we can be able to select the fonts. Behind the scenes, Gemini CLI has kicked off another action where it's also performing a review and catching those common issues that are in pull requests so that it can be all addressed before other people in the team can take the time to review the changes. And we can see here that one of the first things that it caught during its review is that we've hard-coded the default font into the code for generating ASCII art. And it's recommending that we provide that as a constant so that it'll be easier to make changes in the future. And with this, it also suggests code for making this change directly that we can commit into our repository. Secondly, it has a suggestion for a better user experience where we could disable the selected option at the top of the drop-down menu so that users have to select a font when they start using the application. I like this feedback, so once more, I'm going to collaborate with Gemini CLI to address the feedback on this pull request and create a new commit adding the changes. And now, let's check out the application that has font selection and try out different options for ASCII art logo. Right here, I can type out Gemini, generate ASCII art, look at the drop down of the different fonts that we have, pick up a few options. Like I'll start with scrolling down, I'll try out standard and view it, maybe try out a few other options. So to recap, we started with an application without font selection, and then I used Gemini CLI Github Action on an end-to-end workflow to execute this new functionality to provide a way for me to try out different fonts. This was just one example of what you can do. I can't wait to see what you build with Gemini CLI Github Action. Check out the source on GitHub and get started today.